Welcome to another episode of Pod for Good, a podcast where we learn from those doing good in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the world, why they care, what we can do, and most importantly, what you, the listeners, can do. Pod for Good is produced and edited by Random Productions, which is me. So if you like how we sound or are thinking about starting a podcast, reach out to me. I am easy to find. Pod for Good can be found anywhere you get your podcasts. And if you enjoy what we do here, please, for the love of God, make sure to subscribe. You don't even have to listen. Just download. Please. And share this episode on social media. I am, as always, your chief philanthropod and class clown for taking bags of school supplies, Jesse Ulrich.
And I am your vice admiral philanthropod and class clown for getting around the state's funding restrictions, Chris Miller.
On brand, Chris. On this episode, we're talking with Moises Echeverria, president and CEO at the Foundation for Tulsa Schools.
We talked to Moises about the foundation, and we talk about some of his favorite programs, and we somehow managed to stay on topic virtually the entire time.
It's really a Pod for Good birthday miracle. So enjoy our conversation with Moises. Moises, welcome back to Pod for Good. I feel like it's been way too long since we've had you on.
Yes.
The world has changed. We've changed.
Yeah.
You've changed literally positions. You are now the executive director, right, of the Tulsa Public Schools Foundation.
So the title is a president and CEO. So fancy.
Ooh. So you're president again?
Of the Foundation for Tulsa Schools.
Okay.
But I mean, this is, everyone gets the name confused. It's a confusing name, Foundation for Tulsa Schools, because Tulsa Schools, there's more than Tulsa Public Schools in Tulsa. So it's understandable.
All right, but you're still president and CEO of a thing, which is good. I know. It'd be weird to step down from president and CEO to just be executive director. That feels like a demotion.
Even though they're, I mean, if organization or organization, they're virtually the same.
I know, but
I know. I feel
titles
like matter.
You looked in the LinkedIn profile, you're like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
But
some people care about titles. Some people to me, it doesn't matter. But yeah.
So I have to ask. So is the title itself, I mean, the title of the foundation and the order of the words, is that intentional, calling it Foundation for Tulsa Public Schools versus Tulsa Public Schools Foundation? Is that intentional? So it's clear that it's not necessarily part of the Tulsa Public School District?
You know, I think the history of the foundation is really interesting because we've been around for 22 years. And when we got established, it was the combination of two entities, like a county-wide foundation effort for education. And so I think they landed on this name to kind of keep that broad sense. Gotcha. But I think today is nice to think about this as our name indicates that we are separate, because we are completely independent 501c3. We fundraise for our own efforts and budgets and programs. And of course, our whole purpose is to support Tulsa Public Schools. But I think the name now gives some clarity for those who are looking for that we are completely separate. We have our own board of directors that hires me and fires me. We're completely independent from the district.
Okay.
So I guess, so you said the organization's been around for 22 years. So I guess, and you've only been doing this job for about a year, even though it's been a very long year in education for sure. What I'm curious about is, so what is, when it was started and now, like what is the mission? Because as Chris and I have talked about on this podcast very often, like public schools in Oklahoma have very firm restrictions on how they are funded and where the money comes from. And so I can understand why this foundation was born and I can see what it's doing now, but I'm just curious about like how it affects the system that it can only do certain things in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So our mission is to build a stronger community through the support of Tulsa Public Schools. We know that our city will reach its full potential whenever our public schools are reaching their full potential. And we have a long ways to go. So the foundation operates, let me say it this way. You may be familiar with school foundations. Every Tulsa Public Schools Foundation every Tulsa Public Schools high school has a foundation. Some of them have multiple foundations. Some of our elementary schools have foundations. And so those foundations raise money to support that school. We are the foundation for the whole district. And our efforts are strategically in nature, and they support all of the students within the district. So we aim to find people in the community, individuals, organizations, companies that believe in investing in the future of our community and want to be engaged, whether that engagement is giving in-kind donations one time, or they want to adopt a school, or they want to contribute financially for a particular strategy or initiative or program. And so I feel like we serve many times as the first entry point for many individuals and organizations who want to invest in our students and in our educators.
So ultimately, what does it look like? So somebody provides funds or whatever to the foundation. How do then you use it to support the schools?
So one example is I was just in a meeting today with a representative from a company not based in Tulsa, with reach, that's national reach, and they want to donate, make a very sizable in-kind donation to benefit our students. And so they reached out, and we talked about what this donation will be used for. We connected the person within the district who will be overseeing that donation. And we then are able to provide the follow-ups needed, just all the things that that someone who is making a donation expects, the thank yous and the notes and the reminders that sometimes school staff cannot provide because they're running the school and they're running programs, and so that's their focus. And so we step in to be able to say, okay, you are interested in, you have this one strength, and this is one of the needs that we have in our district, and so we play this matchmaking role.
So are most of the donations, are they earmarked like that for like a specific purpose, or are there also like general funds that you all as an organization strategically decide to invest?
So a little bit of both, but I would say that the majority right now has been earmarked for specific programs. So we work with the district to identify a very exciting strategy that will benefit our students, and then we try to identify donors, both local and national, to support those efforts. So a lot of times we're making asks for specific things that once we receive that gift is specific for that thing. And then we try to do more and more work to secure unrestricted donations, because we know as we work so closely with the district, we know that there's a lot of buckets that need to be filled. And that gives us a lot of flexibility to say, okay, we are needing, say, for example, we're short about $10,000 on scholarships for concurrent enrollment, which actually happened last year. And so if we have unrestricted funds, we're able to say, okay, so we can step in and fill in that bucket. Or maybe there's another gap with a teacher appreciation event for the whole district where there may be some we don't have all the funds. And so if we have unrestricted funds, then we're able to come in and fill in those buckets as we see them throughout the year.
So, I mean, I'm mostly just dumbfounded because this is so logical that it exists, right? And Chris and I are always surprised when something logically works the way it's supposed to. So how does the foundation sort of, what's the relationship, I should say, between the foundation and all of the other nonprofits that are intertwined in our public education system? Like, do you have conversations with the people at Reading Partners and Service Year and all of those places?
Yeah, so we are aware of many phenomenal organizations in the nonprofit and nonprofit. I'm sorry, who are nonprofit and who are for profit, and others who invest in our children. And so we through our Partners in Education program, I think that's one of the ways in which we collaborate with these organizations, because many times they're volunteering or sending volunteers into the classroom. And so through this program, the Partners in Education program, we have multiple touch points throughout the year to show appreciation to those to everyone who's making time to be with our students. And so for us, it's important to say thank you. And we do that way. But yeah, in short, I rub shoulders with folks that because they spend so much time within the district. We go to meetings together, and so there's that line of communication that's open, and we try to support their efforts. I can think of one nonprofit, for example, who is there's a lot of demand for them to expand into more of our schools, and they need more volunteers. Their programming is run by volunteers, and so we try to help connect them with companies and congregations that we know are working with our students in some of the schools where they need to expand or want to expand, and where there's demand for them to expand, so that they can find those volunteers, and then they can serve more of our students.
So would you say, and just because I recently had a meeting with them, so the Opportunity Project, are they the inside TPS version of what your foundation kind of does in like a separate way? It's a terrible way of phrasing that question, but here we go. Hold on. Take two. So how do you work with the Opportunity Project, which I know sort of has funding and makes programs around bringing in other organizations into the Tulsa Public School District?
Yeah, so the Opportunity Project is a phenomenal organization, and we are so thankful for all the work that they do in coordinating all of these phenomenal nonprofits who are serving our students. I think the big difference between what the Opportunity Project does and what we do is that the nonprofits that the Opportunity Project engages with, their mission or their work includes youth programming. The organizations that we engage with, many times for-profit companies, do not have youth programming. So it is not part of their mission to serve youth. And so I think that is the biggest the most stark difference. We, of course, through this program, also engage nonprofits who serve our students, but we really, our sweet spot is those entities, including congregations whose mission is not to be in the school necessarily, they're but engaging them and helping them see how they can invest time, talent, treasure in our schools.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense to me. Like there's a difference between what an organization is focused on and people inside an organization wanting to support something, which is two very different things. So.
Yeah. So can you give some examples of either some particularly impactful projects or programs that you've seen, or some just like interesting ones that kind of excited you as they happened?
So there's so many, there's so many wonderful. I think this is why one of the many reasons why I love this job is because I'm so close to many stories of people who are transforming and redirecting the lives of our students. I think there's a program in Tulsa, a fellowship program for graduate students. And there was one fellow who wanted to do programming in the schools. And he was having a really hard time finding a school where he could do this after-school program around STEM education and one of his passions and what he's actually studying, a PhD program. And so we met with the person who oversees the fellowship, and we have such close ties to the district. And so we knew that there was an elementary school with a STEM lab, a fairly new STEM lab that was being underutilized. And we also knew that this principal was hungry to welcome someone from the community to do more with their students. And so we were able to connect this fellow with this principal. And over the last few months of this new academic year, this student has been leading after-school programming with the students. And we have some photos that of the programming and the faces of the students as they're engaging in these experiments and whatever the fellow's teaching them. They're guaranteed to bring a smile to your face. And then on the other hand, his face in these photos, he's so excited. Mm-hmm. After the fellowship is done, this student will have contributed hundreds of hours of research and programming to the school, and that would not have been able to happen without this connection that we're able to bring. That's one example. There's many more. I think of a really exciting strategy. So urban school districts around the nation have been seeing a decrease in enrollment. And what that means, and this is going to sound really technical, but it's actually really strategic. So less students means less funding, and that leads to closing schools. I mean, just all kinds of things. And so we work really strategically with the district for this proposal for enrollment efforts to really highlight, and with a customer service kind of focus on our enrollment efforts for the district, to help families just really feel like they're, like people care, like we want their students there because we do. And then just to market TPS as a district of choice in Oklahoma. And another thing that I really love about the job is that I'm so close to the district that Tulsa Public Schools is nationally recognized for several initiatives and programs. We have some extremely fantastic schools and teachers, and our students who are outstanding, not just in one or two or three schools, but all throughout. So we've been able to do that and seen growth in enrollment, which again means more funding for the district and more funding for the school to be able to hire more teachers, or to hire that music teacher or choir teacher or PE teacher that they would not be able to do without more bodies in the classroom.
If you're like me, you might hear estate planning and go, "Ugh, gross." You might think to yourself, "I'm not sure why I'd bother with that. Estate planning is only for the uber rich."
Tallgrass begs to differ. Tallgrass founding attorneys Laurel and Riley think everyone should have an estate plan. They know estate planning seems untouchable to a lot of folks, like something you have to do inside a stuffy law firm of Stuffy McLawyerpants Esquire.
But I promise you, Tallgrass is nothing like that. For one, they work out of their home so their clients can feel at home. They obsess, because they're nerds, over making clients feel like they belong and are supposed to be there. Also, their kids might make an appearance. They will take time to answer all of your questions, even the uncomfortable ones. They will work relentlessly to make sure your plan's exactly what you need to feel secure and at peace.
So if you've been putting off planning for what's going to happen after you've gone, it's time for you to give Tallgrass a call at 918-770-8940 and start your plan today. Or visit their website at tallgrassesstateplanning.com and schedule a free initial consultation. For free! It's right there on the website.
And of course, there's more, because this is a podcast ad. If you tell them you're a Pod for Good listener, they're going to take 25% off their service fees. Just tell them Pod for Good sent you. Stop thinking estate planning isn't for you and give Tallgrass a call today at 918-770-8940 or on their website, which I'm not going to read out to you again. It's in our show notes. Thank you, Tallgrass. Well, let's tamper your enthusiasm for a second, in the sense that, like, let's talk about this past summer and the continuing fight between Tulsa Public Schools and our own state of Oklahoma. Like, what from your sort of perch there, like, you've been in the job less than a year at that point, and you're seeing like a constant attack on this wonderful district that you work with. Like, what was this summer like? What has the fall semester been like so far?
Yeah, so the summer I would say is probably the hardest time of my life professionally. It was extremely stressful, so much uncertainty, and it was really heartbreaking. What broke my heart about the whole situation is that regardless of where people stand on that situation with the district and the state, regardless of where people stand on that, I knew that would make some folks who want to invest in our students pause and potentially not support our students. And right now, public education, not just in Oklahoma, but around the nation, we need more support. Our educators need more support. Our students need more support. And it broke my heart to think that we may not be able to follow through on some of the commitments that we've made for the academic year in terms of support, both financial and in kind and others, because people were pausing and thinking, what's going to happen? Is TPS going to be accredited, or are these allegations true, or whatever it is that was causing people to stop and think and question whether or not they wanted to invest right now or wait until the dust settled or whatever. And I know that right now in the district, there's over 33,000 students who are fantastic, remarkable, so talented, and have so much potential. And all of them need our community to stand up for them, regardless of what's going on with the politics in the district, again, in the state. And so it was hard because of that. It's also been comforting to a level to see the amount of support that I see every day of people who may have questions, who may want answers, and deserve to have information, but who want to still be involved in the lives of our students. That gives me so much comfort. And I think this fall has been, I've have a renewed sense of hope for the future of Tulsa Public Schools, for the future of the foundation, for the future of our city, because there's a lot of people who have been stepping up and saying, we want to support our students. We don't want to abandon them. But that's not to say that it was not a very challenging summer.
Yeah. And I mean, I think for us, it was amazing to see students, young teachers step up and become leaders in those situations and see that them step forward and fight for the district. And it does make you feel like there is hope, right? What we're going through now is tough and difficult, but there's hope for the future.
Young people are what inspire me and give me hope for the future. Like, it's what allows me to wake up every morning and not feel dread, really. Yeah. And I think this summer we saw some of that. Graduation time is perhaps, even though I've been at the foundation for only a year, is perhaps my favorite time of the year. I can already tell that. And just being able to go around different schools and see our students who have worked so hard and overcome so many challenges and have completed all the requirements that it takes to graduate. You asked earlier about some of the things that is really exciting, and the district has been working really closely in establishing stronger relationships with local universities. And there was a local university who said, we want to do more, and what do you need? So long story short, there's a valedictorian in one of our schools, perhaps one of the most underserved schools within the district. And this university president came to a ceremony that the school held as a surprise for this student, and provided a full ride scholarship with also a scholarship for room and board. I mean, everything covered for this university, for this one student who is the child of immigrants, and the first person in their family to go to college. And just seeing the reaction, and the parents were there, and I mean, there was lots of tears everywhere. But just thinking about how this student is going to be transformed because a university said, we want to do more. What do you need from us? And then they've transformed the life of this one student. And that's just one example of all the many other initiatives that are on their way to partner with for the university to partner with the school. So all of that to say that there's just so many great things going on with our students, and being able to be, I was invited to speak at my high school's graduation. Wow. And so I was blown away when I was there and saw the students who were part of the program give their speeches both in Spanish and in English. It was really touching and moving. And so as I spoke to them, I just spoke a little bit in Spanish at the beginning, but be able to say from un cardinal al otro, from one cardinal to another, it was just really moving and rewarding and inspiring for me. But young people give me hope.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just watching you talk about that inspired me. It was the transitive property of inspiration, I guess.
Right.
because like I can see how much you care. Not only how much you care, but how much you are affected by other people's caring about it, which is kind of the reason we do this podcast, which is we want to get energized by other people's passion. And so I'm so happy for you personally that you get to do this, because I know your career up until that point was also in sort of the education of young people, but in a different avenue. So I'm glad you're still in this space, helping to both shape and be shaped by the next generation of leaders. So, I have a different view of teens than you do, but I
You're a substitute teacher. That doesn't count.
No. I hated teenagers long before then, but no, it's mostly just how their passion and occasional arrogance just rubs me the wrong way sometimes. But I also see why I remember being that way. I think it's just, I'm angry at myself as a teenager looking back at other teenagers. So 'cause I was like, God, I must have been a real piece of work. Anyway. Well, so, I mean, most jobs that adults have are no longer tied to the school system, right? Like we don't get breaks. We don't get, the only breaks we get are vacations and occasional like Christmas, New Year's type of breaks. So like, have you enjoyed being back in sort of like the school calendar, or is it still just like a regular 365-day job for you?
So I thought that this summer was going to be easy and just super laid
and then
back.
Ryan Walters happened.
Mm-hmm.
But even in June, before any of this was going on, I was like, okay, June, end of the fiscal year, end of the academic year. June was extremely busy, and then July got even more busy. It's not. I don't get spring
fall
break or fall break. It's a regular job, and that is fine. I actually enjoy there's so much more to do. And I think that's true in for any nonprofit leader, and never enough time to do it all. And so sometimes I wish that I had more time, and that I had more days to be able to do all the things that our students deserve to be done for them, and that our community really deserves to be done for our students.
So I know, and this has come up in previous podcasts, but we know that there are limitations that say of what the city of Tulsa can do to help out school districts, right? All related to the tax code and how it's built and the whole funding formula.
Tax code.
Yeah. Are there limitations on what the foundation is allowed to fund, or programs that they're allowed to fund, or that you have to deal with regulations or tax code restrictions?
Yeah. So everything that we do has to be, when I say, I feel like I'm repeating myself so much, but we work hand in hand with the district. There's nothing that we should do that is not part of the strategy of the district, right? Like when everything is working correctly, our board strategy should be in nice alignment, not the same, but in nice alignment with the TPS's strategic plan. So because of that, we're not going to step in and say, we're going to give raises to, we're going to pay raises for teachers in this one school through philanthropy, because we can't.
Right.
And the district wouldn't want that, because, there's more educators than philanthropy can support in the district. So yes, so there's a lot of restrictions as to what philanthropy is able to do. And ultimately, TPS and the school board, there has to be a lot of alignment and understanding and open channels of communication. Our major programs that Tulsa Public Schools executes, that we fundraise for, are board approved. They go through the school board and get all the votes needed, and then the district's able to move forward and execute them. But we cannot, and we should not be doing anything without the district support.
What would you say, because even Chris and I had misconceptions before this interview started, and probably still, when you're out in the community talking about the work you do, if people even know that your foundation exists, like what would you want to tell people, if they're talking about public education, about the foundation? Like, what is the one piece of information you want to get across about the work you do?
So many things. So many things. So number one, every little bit counts. And I think that nonprofits like the Foundation for Tulsa Schools and many others rely on the collective impact that many people can have. And so it's been really refreshing to me to have individuals sometimes who are retired coming in the middle of the day with 2 or 3 sacks from the store with school supplies and saying, I know that students need school supplies. Here you go. Can you please get them to students? To the several hundred thousand or multi-million grants that sometimes we receive for really big initiatives. So the first thing is every little bit counts. The second is that we need more caring adults to be mentors of our students. And whether that's formal through nonprofits that have volunteers in the schools, and there's several who have great programming, or informal, but our students need more caring adults in their lives. And then number 3, which I mentioned already, but again, I think a lot of people don't realize that we are a completely independent, separate 501c3 and we're not part of the district. We work really closely with the district, but I'm not accountable to the school board. I am not accountable to the superintendent. Neither are they to our foundation governing leaders or to myself. And then the last thing I would say is that public education in the nation needs to undergo a lot of changes, right, to meet the demands of our students today, and just the changes in technology. And I think that that people in the community who care can be part of those conversations and shaping what public education becomes. But there is so much at stake. And not being involved in public education will hurt everyone. Even if we have children in public education or no children in public education, it is critical for public education systems in our communities to be strong. And I think the foundations for districts throughout the nation serve a really critical point through really important programs. And it's really fun to see, for example, some of the programs and initiatives that Oklahoma City Public Schools Foundation runs, which are very different than us, but with still really critical, focusing on a pipeline of leadership and talent and supporting students with different focuses, but ultimately the same outcomes, right, that we're trying to see. But it's really magical to see the differences of how each community and how the initiatives for each school foundations are shaped by our students, are shaped by our community members and by district leaders.
So if people listen to this and are suddenly inspired, how do they connect with the foundation, either monetarily or as volunteers or whatever? How do they connect and get involved?
So the best way to get connected with us is online through our website, foundationfortulsaschools.org. That has all of our programs, that has our initiatives, that has events, and it has my contact information so people can call me or email me. And I would love to meet with anyone who wants to support our students.
Well, Moises, this has been great. And honestly, one of our most effective interviews I think we've done, mostly because we all have hard stops for this one, but it focused us, it honed our attention.
That's right.
I do feel bad that you're now working at a job that requires you to have 2 cell phones, but which is a funny policy we'll talk about in another podcast. But Moises, thank you so much. This has been great. You. And maybe at the end of this full school year, we can check in with you again and see how it's going.
I would love that. Thank you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all for listening to our episode with Moises. Please donate on their website, foundationfortulsaschools.org. And for us, Pod for Good can be found on Facebook, on Instagram, and Twitter. I'm not calling it its new name. It's stupid. I made my first TikTok last week. It's very exciting. So maybe there'll be more Tik and Talks later on. As always, please make sure to subscribe and leave us a review if we can, which every time we mention this is when Chris is checking to see if we have any new reviews, which we should always do before we start recording. But,
yes, we should.
As always, Tulsa, get it done. Broken Arrow, I don't have time this week. Be kind to one another.